Let's talk some toys in here.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Today it's the Man-Child. Alright, so today for a review. This is going to be part 15 of opening up my MOTU Classics figures for talk and review, or hangout and review. So if you're new here, it's pretty much what I'm doing, just opening up carded classics that have been in card for many years. Doing a little talk, little reviews, articulation, maybe some comparisons. I kind of adjust the videos depending on the comments. I do 3 to 4 figures, but I try to stick to 3, and also the way I go about them. So first up, I brought an Extendar. Now this is this was a request by one of the viewers in the comments. You want to see Extendar next, so here you go. We have LODAR. LODAR was one of the last, I want to say, classics figures that Super 7 put out when they had the license. It was like a 4. You had to buy them in 4 figures. I think Fangor was LODAR and a couple other ones. But we have LODAR and Snake Face. Okay, first up, of course, let's take a look at Extendar again as a request, going back to that viewer in the comments. So I remember getting Extendar as a kid, going into my local Child's World, as I always mention, where I got most of my figures from. I was probably around 10 years old, and figures like Extendar, Snout Spout, and Rio Blast were some of the last figures that come to the vintage line. And then the movie figures came, I think, later, and they were last. And then the Powers of Grayskull stuff, like the dinosaurs, came out. But I don't think any figures come out with that series, like we're getting in the Origins now. I really thought they were cool-looking figures. They were odd, but at the same time unique. So I go into Child's World, and it was one of the rare occasions where I had extra money from my mom. And usually she would come in with me. She sat out in a car, and I had, like, I'm making something up, $15 or $16 in my pocket. And when I go in, I went to the rack on my toy hunt, right? They had Extendar, Rio Blast, and Snout Spout. And MOTU, or the vintage MOTU series or brand, was having a dry spell going on my toy hunts. Like, there wasn't a lot of figures coming around. But I went to the racks on my hunt, and they had all 3 of these figures. And I was just like, again, I looked at all of them, like, man, these are kind of like, they look like something out of Master Universe, but more complex. And that's what they were going for. But, of course, I had to have them. So I grabbed all 3 figures, because it was another rare occasion where they had 3 figures. Usually you go in and it was 1 or 2. And same thing, my mom would only let me get 1 or 2. Well, I got all 3 figures. I went up to the aisle, or the checkout, and I didn't have enough money because the prices started going up. They were like $4.99 back in the day, and now they're going up to like 5 something, whatever it was, like $5.24 or something like that. And with tax and all this, kind of whatnot, I didn't have enough. And I remember, like, putting my head down, almost like pouting, And my mom's out in the car, and there was another guy in line behind me, and I wind up taking, like, I want to say Snout Spout or something, and I was going to leave the first 2, like, Extendar figures I was going to keep, and I think Rio Blast, and I wind up turning around and putting Snout Spout back, and just as I did that, some guy pulled out $2, and he just threw it down and says, "Here, don't worry about it," and it was just what I needed. I needed like $1.98, something weird like that, but it was like $2, and I was like, "Oh, thank you, sir." I was so happy to just have somebody help me out like that, and I got to take all 3 figures home and take them out of card and play around with them, and they were all awesome. I mean, really fun, because they all had unique action features. But Extendar was really, when I think back at that time, even looking at the classics now of all figures, it's just how unique he was, being able to extend them real tall and the arms and legs out. And always think about that guy to help me out. And years later, I did the same to this day for many people. Hand out, money, or I've given free toys away, behind the scenes kind of things, and I enjoy doing that. Now, the thing with the Classics Extendar is he doesn't exactly have the action features, I don't think. Maybe the waist comes up, just like they did with the Origins, but he has extension connectors that we have to put in the hands and legs. Just like the Origins. So it's still pretty cool. He left that for the Classics, and he looks really good for the way they went about him. And here's a quick look at the bio for Extendar. You want to pause and read that? Here's a quick look around with the Classics Extendar and all his accessories cut out of package. Yeah, he's pretty interesting, just everything he comes with. He's another Classics figure I've never, ever watched a review of. And I noticed, too, yeah, he does not have the action feature with the larger center extension piece like the Origins one does. That's what I thought, but nope, it's an individual piece. Okay, taking a closer look at this Classics Extendar. So the first thing I notice is that the overall paint tone on the main body, it's not marbleized. It doesn't have a marbleizing effect, just like the Vintage and the Origins figures had. I don't think, anyway. It looks like it's a pearlescent or pearl white, as far as maybe the main casting, it was cast in that color, or it might be it was just again, the casting had a pearl white tone, but then they gave the figure some type of like overspray or dry brushing effect, because you can see it's very glossy the way it reflects in my light, but then it has all the metallic, I'd say it almost looks silver or gold, the metallic overspray on the body, but interesting design for color. But in some sense, it almost kind of looks marbleized at certain angles, almost like the head, but I don't think it is. So he looks like he has a mane, underneath the armor. It's a regular, classic style He-Man buck. And then he has the armor that's the main part of his body. I bring that up because the figure has a lot of newer tooling, which Extendar always did, but they are sharing some parts. Again, the buck, and I want to say the gloves, right? That's the only parts I can see that's reused from other classics figures. The armor itself is also, it's made out of like a soft PVC plastic. Look at how gummy it is up at the face guard. So you can stretch it all the way out and all the way in like so. Moving down, he has that, always remind me of like a door knocker. It's a reinforced piece, right? Part of the armor, and then you have the extra piece that it's a reinforcement up to the face guard. So that's obviously painted gold, and you can see all the gold, everything that's painted gold, like the shoulder protectors, these little pieces on the biceps, the gloves, the waist. And I bring that up also because I do have chipping in certain areas on the gold. So all these pieces are all, it's all this pearlescent white color or casting, but just painted over. And you got to be very careful because of the chipping. Now, as far as the head, so the head, just like the waist, does not have an action feature. I wasn't sure of that. This is my first time actually seeing, not only taking the Classics Extendar out of package, but just going over one. I've never watched a review on this figure. I've watched a lot of Classics reviews in the past, and there's a lot I haven't. And that's what makes it, I guess, fun with these videos. Not only to re-experience opening of the Classics again for a lot of people that have them, or don't have them, or want them, or they never even heard of them, but just, it's a surprise to me seeing what they're like. Figures I'm not familiar with, aside I'm familiar with the character. So as far as the head, obviously it doesn't go up, it doesn't have the action feature. I never said that. The arms, and we got to put all his extension pieces on, which we'll do in a little while. But with the head inside that face guard, it's on a ball joint, obviously. And as far as the articulation, you can go all the way back. You can go push forward, right? And you'll hit the face guard, and you can see he has the openings, or the vents. You can turn, twist. Let me see. Yeah, see, it's hard to get your hand in here too. You even notice it's soft to move that head. There you go. You can turn it all the way to the left and then all the way to the right. So yeah, I think it's cool that it was a good idea that they made this main armor PVC just for the articulation of the head, because this was a hard plastic. Yeah, it wouldn't work good with the articulation. And then moving back over to the arms. So again, you have this, the shoulder protectors or main armor. They kind of rise a little bit above the main armor, as you can see. But what you notice is that it really hinders, and it looks like a single swivel joint here or something. So when you go to articulate this arm, right, check that out. That's all you can do with it. Even if I force it, that's as far as it's going to go up, because this piece hits the rubber armor, and that's it. And the other side, exactly the same way. You can't really go up with it. So as far as the main articulation with the rest of the arm, so we were talking about this, as far as you can go up. You can go down to the body. That's about it. Let's see. You can go forward. You can go back. He does have the bicep swivel. All new arms, right? There's, again, a lot of newer tool parts on this figure. Then you have the new forearm. And as far as articulation with that, okay, you can bend all the way up and see the articulation to the face. So that's as far as when I go to the center of the face and the chest. Which ain't, not terrible with this figure. And he has those gloved hands, and these are, okay, they're two different pieces, actually. I thought this was one whole glove with a hand. So the back of the glove, it's almost like a bracer or something. That does spin, and I guess that's where it comes off for the extensions, all right? And then, of course, you have the other part of the hand. That's a separate piece I just mentioned. That can spin, and he has weapon gripping hands, and they're really soft. Going back over to the left side, same identical arm. We already talked about the shoulder articulation as far as it goes up. All right, but let's test it all out. Go down to the body. Let's see, go forward, go back. You can see from, what it looks like from the back when it's all the way in that position, the joint. Better look at the joint anyway. Bicep swivel, bend the elbow down, up. You could turn it all into the body, and then again, same type of, right, that glove in hand. Spin that. So going back over to the main body, it's just, yeah, it has its own unique style armor, as I already talked about. It's over the main body. I'll take this off soon. But just its own unique abs in the chest, plating for the chest. And then here's a look at the back, very mechanical looking. Dropping down to the waist. So yeah, it just has its own, again, just all new, just his own style waist and kind of belt piece going around. Let's look from the front and back again. Here's Mattel. It says, what does it say? 2013. All right, it's interesting. That's how long ago this figure came out. Now, he can spin at the waist, and then, of course, he comes apart at the waist. Now, I want to be careful with this, but that does not, wow. So, yeah, that's a look at, the figure coming apart where a lot of classics don't. Something very comparable to the origins. Now what's interesting is this peg's really short. I removed this earlier off camera, but, like, look, taking it out and trying to push it back in, there's not a lot of room. That peg is really short. Like, mine barely goes back in. See that? So you got to be careful with this. Might have to heat the lower waist back up. Let me see. All right, off camera, I got the body back on the legs. It wasn't terrible. I had to actually have them twisted that way, and it seemed to snap on better instead of this way. That's strange. So we're moving back down. We talked about this piece. And as far as the legs, so yeah, like a newer style leg, obviously all new tooled legs. It looks like they took the regular like He-Man style legs for the most part, but then yeah, you have some new armored pieces that's all part of the sculpt on both sides. And then you notice too where these pieces come up and how it's cut. You can see the joints in there and just how the loin cloth or pad is cut back. At certain angles, it looks weird. You can really see the joints. They did that for the articulation, but then you had these pieces that help hide, make it look like it's a natural as far as the legs going back into the shorts. But at certain angles, when you go to move it forward, like this one, for instance, when you articulate it, it gets stuck. So you have to tuck this little piece underneath to make it work. Just kind of pointing that out. As far as the articulation now with the legs, right? So obviously we're already in a kicking forward pose. So that's the figure kicking forward with that leg. And again, I already showed you this with the side. You have that cut, and you can see the joint there really well now. And then going back over to the other side, it's the same thing. This one catches a little better. Right, so you can kick forward as far as you're going to go, and then you can go back, have the swivel, go all the way out with a split. Just look at the bottom. You can bend at the knee. The other side's all the same. And then dropping down to the boots. So you have these like, okay, so this is the main boot that spins. You have this newer style. It's just like a reinforced plate that comes off the lower ankle. So it's part of the ankle. And you bend with that, and then obviously the boot spins underneath that. Right, the side is exactly the same. And again, you notice gold highlights on everything. And I do have areas that are chipping, as I mentioned earlier. It's hard to see in my light. There's, area there. There's a piece there. I seen some up here earlier on the glove. It says chipping back here. So just word of caution, if you have this figure, be careful with the gold because it will chip easy. All right, we talked about the boot and spin. And yeah, it has its own unique style boots. And then he has this big, heavy-duty foot as part of the boot. Again, you have these gold reinforced plates that go around at the bottom. And as far as the articulation with this foot, let's test it out. You can go as far as you're going to go down, up, that's it. And you can, is that rocker joints? Yeah, rock side to side a little bit. And how about the other foot? Okay, up, down, there you go. And you can rock side to side. And that's about it. And once again, jumping back up to the armor, taking a look at the back of it. I want to remove it off the body just to confirm it's a regular classic style buck, which I know it is. So you have two tabs on each side, and these arms too. Like, see, you got to watch these. You got to get them out of the way and try to get my fingers in there. Let's see. All right, so we're going to pop that tab on that side like so, and then break this one. And then I think, all right, so we got to remove the head off the body. Okay, here's a quick look at the body with the armor and head removed. And yeah, I had to use heat to remove this head. I could not get it off. So it's just a typical classic He-Man style buck. You can just see again how he spins at the waist and how wide it is, how much the armor hides that. And there's the ab crunch. And there's a close look at the armor off the body. So I already talked about that's a PVC, really soft type of plastic. You can get a better look at the paint on the inside or how it's casted once again, but it does have some type of spray going around everything. And then here's a look at the head as well. All right. Yeah, really good details, very cybernetic looking. And you can see just again how it was casted, like a flat white tone or the main plastic, and how they sprayed the overall helmet or how it's coated. So the next thing I decided to do is take all the parts off Extendar. Right, we already have the head and the armor removed. Just want to do this to save time off camera. So we're already familiar with the waist or the body, removing this right off the waist part. Going back to these shoulders again, without the armor on, they can go up a little higher, but as far as articulation, because of these protectors, that's as high as you're going to go. So very limited articulation, but that's the body split in half because we'll start building those extensions on soon. And just look at the bottom of the legs, the feet. So it's just, just again, little pegs. All you do is just pop them right out. They came out pretty easy. And the head had a regular ball peg up top, and then the hands too. Just pop that real easy, little pegs. Again, as I pulled these hands apart, going back to the gold color, I had gold chips popping out. So I'll be very careful. I'm just pointing it out for the third or fourth time with the gold. Even here, my gloves are chipping there. So that's basically Extendar all, taken apart. And now, moving forward, taking a look at Extendar's extension pieces. So obviously, this is the larger piece for the waist. Let's quick look at that. You can see where the main peg is going to snap, or it's upside down, excuse me. You're going to go into the bottom of the hips, and then the upper part of the body will snap on this like so. This is maybe an inch long, not even. And you can see it has two different types of circuitry, like, just the sculpting. So you have that pattern on this side and then a different type on this side. So that's his main waist piece. And then you get two different pieces for the arms. I believe the smaller ones are for the arms. Now they have a curve in them. See that? And again, they have, like, the circuitry is different on each side. Then you get the larger ones for the bottom of the legs. Again, same thing with the circuitry. See those? And then lastly, you get the neck extension piece. He has a little peace symbol on it, going back to what the Vintage and New Origins did. And I think that had something to do with Extendar, before he became one of Hordak's experiments, was peaceful and loving knight, and that was the idea of the peace sign, or something like that, I remember reading. And that too looks like it has a little curve in the neck. But anyway, that's all extension pieces. And it's interesting that the legs, and the arms are different. I thought they'd all be the same, like the Origins, but they're not. Okay, once again, I brought in the Extendar parts, right, mixed in with all our extension parts. So let's start building them. So obviously, right, we have the lower legs and these larger style extensions, or the thicker ones. These are going to be for the legs. So I'm going to put those on first. And again, there's the pegs, obviously, and they're just going to snap onto the bottom like so. And now with both lower leg extensions installed, let's start putting the boots and feet back on. Now some of these you got to heat up because they're, I have a hard time putting them in. So let me put those on next and we'll take a look at that. And then here's a complete look of both leg extensions and boots installed. So yeah, obviously these leg extensions can spin all around up on the top, and so can the boot. And same thing with the other side. And I don't think it matters which way the circuitry goes. I think usually the slotted parts face forward and these odd parts with the pieces sticking out face out. It doesn't really matter. Beside that, quick look at that setup and the overall articulation height with these pieces. Once again, jumping back up to the hip area, I'm just going to put that hip extension piece in like so, and that's what it looks like going in, how you can spin it all around. And then there's a look at that setup. So obviously the torso can spin on this larger extension piece. We still have the ab cut crunch. And then let's put the soft armor back over the body. So without the head on, I'm just going to slip it down like so. All right, that's what it'll look like over the extension, or at least how it hides the lower part of the ab. And then we just got to buckle the two ends in the back. Okay, with the armor put back on and snapped together, let's put the neck extension and head on the main ball peg. So I think the peace symbol usually goes in the back. So I'm just going to snap that on like so. And of course, there's a quick look at that setup. So yeah, obviously we have the neck extension on with the peace symbol facing towards the back, the head on. So you can see the range of articulation and motion with the head, the back. Let's spin them around. And here's a quick look at the front. Now you can obviously see the helmeted head sticking out of the main face shield. And again, a lot better articulation obviously with that extension. Look all the way to the left, the right. Look all the way forward and go back. All right, and then lastly, moving on to the arms. Of course, let's put these smaller arm extensions in. So they're just going to pop in like so. Went in pretty easy. Again, these looked a little bit curved, so I guess the curved piece goes on the inside, or I guess it don't matter. So however you want to spin it. And then, of course, just, the hand goes in on that side, right? We'll do the same with the other arm. There we have it. Extendar all extended up. Yeah, he's pretty tall. He's almost a foot tall. So we already went over most of the articulation with the figure without the extension pieces on. So as far as the arm pieces, obviously they're smaller than the legs, but it doesn't matter which side you switch them on. It's not like a right and left side. Same thing with the leg extensions. So once again, as far as the articulation with all the pieces on, we already looked at the head, but let's do it again. Right, look left to right, go down and up. Move all around with the neck extension piece in the back. Right, and of course you can turn that. You don't have to have the piece symbol in the back, but I think that's the right way it goes on. Plus you notice too, it's sort of a semi-cut in the bottom of this to accommodate the tapered end of the neck piece. I think it's equal all the way around. Anyway, so that's the right way to put it on, I believe. And then going back to the arms, again, can't really do much with the articulation because of the shoulders, but of course we can go forward, back, the bicep swivel, all the same. So now when we bend the elbow and let's see with that extension piece, we can still go up to the head and the body all the way down to the legs. Other arms are all the same. Of course, I already mentioned we could spin these, and then you can spin the hands with these, or like this bracer type thing, somewhat. Now we know we can spin at the waist, and this piece can spin up here. So you also have the, you can rock back and forth. And with the armor on, obviously the ab crunch does work somewhat through the armor. It actually works better now, for some reason. I don't know if it's, because it's not hitting the waist. I didn't show that before, I forgot. I'm showing it now. But yeah, with the waist, it was really hindered. But it works a lot better now. Spin them all around and around. And then going down to the legs. The only thing that changed is just the extensions. We're familiar with the articulation, but I'll do it just to have fun, see what it looks like now, doing kicks. So here we go. This piece you got to tuck in like I showed earlier. Now you have a really far extension kick with the boot, or punch with the hand. Yeah, it's really interesting how tall Extendar is with all these pieces. Okay, the next thing I want to show with Extendar all built up is a couple size comparisons. So obviously I just dragged in my classic Scare Glow that sits in the background now against Extendar. Again, I'll extend it up. There's a quick look at that. Those two together as far as height. And Extendar extends, I thought he was a foot, I'm wrong. He's close to 10 inches tall, if you can see that, from the boots all the way up to the top of the head. So under a foot. I thought he was a foot, but that's pretty tall. So I'm going to move the classic Scare Glow out of the way, and I want to bring in the Masterverse New Eternia Beastman, because he's pretty large. So there's kind of a quick size comparison between those two as far as height. Okay, for two other height comparison examples, I just brought in the movie Masterverse He-Man. He has a custom head on against the classics Extendar, and I also throw in the Origins He-Man. And just look at all three of those together. Again, just the fun for the different heights between the Masterverse, the Origins, what the classics would do, the New Eternia Beastman, and the overall height of Extendar for the classics and how tall he is. And once again, moving forward, take a look at Extendar's weapons and accessories. So to give him this really cool looking lance, it's cast in a metallic, shiny, goldish color or tone. Of course, you have the lower handle where it's gonna grip it with his hand. That's cast, painted in black. Now, what's interesting is the tip or the very point. It's very soft rubber. The rest of this is very hard, so it's not gummy. But this piece is very gummy, and you can see mine was warped out of package. I also noticed that it can spin. At first, I thought it could retract in and out by pushing it. That would make sense, right? You think this whole piece would be able to go in here as a weapon and extend out, like being Extendar. And I don't know, maybe that's what it's supposed to do with the classics, but mine is not doing that. It just can, as I already mentioned, spin. I try maybe locking it, see if it goes in and out, and I'll have to look at that later. I don't know if it's on a peg. I tried bending it, pulling out, and it's not something I want to break or mess up, but I just wanted to point that out. Aside that, and this piece being gummy, it is a cool looking accessory. And then, of course, he gets his vintage-inspired foldable shield. Very similar to what they gave the classics, the Origins as well. And you can see we're just going to clip onto the arm, right, the piece, and then let's see how it unfolds. So, all right, we got that one like so, and I think the 3 points. All right, it unfolds that way. Yeah, this piece here, and there you go. And there's the shield unfolded. And I think you bend it like that, snap it onto his arm. There's a look at the circuitry inside it. That also has a peace symbol as well. Going back to the peace symbol in the back, an extension on the neck. Circuitry very similar to his extensions, or pays homage to that. And same thing with the other side. And once again, jumping back over to Extendar, all extended up. Of course, I put both weapons in hand, so I put his lance, or jousting lance, I guess you would call it. It's the right hand for now, and that foldable shield in the left. Now you notice, as I already showed, it has the clip-on handle kind of thing. That's one thing I like about the classics with a lot of shields, because you clip it on to whether the arm or the hand or whatnot, it would scratch, it would just scratch the figure up. Now it's meant to clip onto this wrist, I think, but I'm not doing that because I know I'm going to chip the gold, because this is sharp. But at the same time, you could just clip it onto the extension piece, which works fine. And that shield was always weird to me. I guess you can articulate it. It's more like a shield / slicing weapon or something. I always visualize it as. And I think it clips like that, so it's facing on the outside, however you want it. You can fold it back in like so, make it a smaller shield, or put these pieces in, however you want to fold it up, or flip it upside down. I've seen it like this as well. I think that's the right way to do it, actually. And the last thing I wanted to do is bring in the Origins Extendar for a comparison against the Classics Extendar, because the Masterverse hasn't put one out yet anyway. So just a quick look at those two together. Now, obviously, right, the Classics Extendar is all built up, and it takes time to unbuild them. Now, the Origins, so let's see. Now, so he has the marbleizing effect going on all over the body, both the gold, as far as the shoulders, the silver, and stuff like that. The gloves are painted. No, actually, that looks marbleized too. But basically, what you notice with about the Origins and I think the Vintage is you always see like these weird lines and splits. Almost looks like cracks sometimes. That's when they apply it. It's hot, and in the cooling process, when it shrinks, I think that's just how it makes those type of cracks and lines. The Origins also, so once again, it has similar extension pieces. Now you notice too, the arms are curved. And you can also put these on the legs and make it look like he's running. But primarily they're used for the arms. And the arms and legs are very similar as far as the thickness, but the leg ones are actually shorter. Now I look at that, and I already mentioned these are curved, so that's the difference. And the Origins also has, quote-unquote, a couple of the existing action features going back to the Vintage. So the waist in the Origins pops up. So it's not a piece that you have to put in like the Classics and it can spin. And the head also pops up as well. So it has that action feature, right? And there's a peace symbol in the back. So just a quick look at that. He has the similar shield that the Classics one comes with. Unfold it, right? But he doesn't come with a lance or another weapon like the Classics. So with the Origins all deployed, we'll spread it out. Let's set him and the Classics up like so. All right, take a quick look at those two, the height. So, all right, pretty neat. They did a good job, I think, between both the Classics and the Origins. What I also like with the Classics Extendar is that he's not so stubby in the legs. So when you take apart the Origins, the lower like thigh down to knee is very stubby to the foot, to where the Classics it looks normal. It's long. I like that. It's just they have better legs than the Origins. That's a little gripes on my end. But aside that, there's a quick look at those two together. And I guess, all right, while I'm doing it, let me take everything apart and shrink them both and compare them without all extension pieces on or retracted in. Here's a quick look at that. So obviously I have all extension pieces removed or retracted in, at least with the Origins. And what I also like with the Origins is just how stocky he is. I mean, not only the marbleizing, which is cool in its own way, but yeah, I like this paint too. This is even, has its own thing going on. It's different from the Origins or what the Vintage did. He has just the overly large hands. Now, again, you can see how stubby the feet are compared to the Classics. Yeah, I like the longer legs, but it is Origins fun. And thank God the Origins has articulation now where you can at least straighten them out a little bit, where the Vintage didn't have that. It has the big hands. And that's pretty much it between the two. Really interesting figures, how they both went about them, whether it was the Origins or the Classics. Okay, moving on. Taking a look at our next Classics figure, we have LODAR. So yeah, this is the first time LODAR was ever produced as far as an action figure. It's part of the MOTU brand or series. The Vintage never made one. And what I remember most about LODAR was going back to the mini comics. So LODAR appeared, I think, or the only mini comic he ever appeared in was called Slave City. It was mini comic number 7. Came out in, I think, 1983. It was issued with, I want to say, Prince Adam, Orko, and I think Zodak. And I still have that laying around somewhere, actually, but I just remember the cover, just like I'm showing in the image, of LODAR grabbing He-Man by the hair, right? As a kid now, he has him shackled up, and he's swinging a big spike mace ready to smash him in the face. I mean, being a kid at those days, seeing He-Man and mini comic all tied up like that or chained up, being ready to be smashed in the face, I had a lot of anxiety. So that's what I remember most about Lodar. And at the same time, I thought we'd see one in the vintage line or appear as a toy. As I mentioned, they never did. But decades later, Super 7 finally made their version, right, as he is here. So aside that, really interesting looking character or figure. Kind of reminds me of some type of magical gladiator. So yeah, obviously has a shoulder armor. I like the face mask. The purple skin really stands out. And he also comes with those big chain shackles as well that is shown on the front of that mini comic holding He-Man. And real quick, here's a look at the art and cross-sell and back of the packaging. Now, with my classics openings, I usually don't show this. I go right to the bio. But I just wanted to point out what wave Lodar was included in. So going back to the beginning of this review, I did mention Lodar came with, I believe, Fangor and two other figures. We have Quake and Hawkeye. So that was their collector's choice line. And then dropping down at the same time, they were making a cartoon line, what they called the Classics or Club Grayskull. And this was all 4 figures, part of that series. And I want to say these were some of the last figures Super 7 produced with the Classics MOTU license before Mattel took the line over for, what became the Origins of Masterverse later. And of course, there's a quick look at the bio for Lodar. You want to pause and read that. Here's a quick look around with Lodar, cut out a package with all his accessories. So, taking a closer look at the head sculpt for Lodar. Yeah, obviously he comes with a helmet and a face mask that's all one piece that surrounds the whole entire head. But of course you have an opening to where you can see the eyes, part of the face. He even has a steel piece that goes right down the center that covers the mask. So it almost looks like the mask can separate or is supposed to come off separate from the helmet, but it's not. Again, it's, from what I see, nope, it's all part of the sculpt. So, it's pretty neat. Would have been cool if the mask can come off or you had an alternative head without the helmet mask just to see who he is underneath it. Moving up, he has a row of spikes on the head, which are all part of this plate that goes down over the mask. So pretty neat. And yeah, I like the colors too. It's a metallic purplish tone on the face mask, the spikes, the shoulder pads, whatnot. And then the helmet itself is just black. So here's a look from the back and then the other side. As far as the articulation with the head, the helmeted head, look all the way to the left. Let me get hindered. No, okay. So all the way to the left, to the right, you can look down and go back. And that's pretty much it. Really interesting design. So dropping down, he has this, looks like a upper chest protector piece, something like a football player would wear, or gladiator. You have the cross, the tie straps that holds it together. It's all part of the sculpt. They're painted black. Obviously, this piece of armor is it's not metallic. It's just like a shiny, I want to say glossy blue color under my light. Spinning him around, let's look at the back of that too. And it's also, obviously it's a half armor, right? Or just like a football player wears, reminds me of something like that. Now, the other thing I noticed too is it's glossy. Most of the armor, the overall design or color is glossy, but then you have scuffs going all down in certain parts of it. First I thought they were scratches, but you know what that is? That looks like runs from the glue or adhesive they used on the shoulder pads. So going back up to the shoulder pads, he has obviously these spiked shoulder armor pieces. They're rubber, right? And they're identical on both the left and right side. And they're glued to this main chest, the chest armor. See that? So they don't come off. Yeah, I think so. Glued on both sides. How about that side? Yep. And that's what it looks like. The glue ran down off the adhesive from the factory. Now, that's the one thing with Super 7. They make some really cool figures, whether it was Thundercats or Conan or, MOTU. And every figure I ever opened up, I always had QC issues. I hate to say it. A lot of times it's paint or problem with the joints, but yeah, Super 7 is really known for that. And I know, and I remember watching an interview because a lot of factory issues they have, but yeah, maybe use a new factory. And this figure too. And another thing too, dropping down the other part with this armor. So this is how I normally take it apart. So you have 2 buckles, right? Snap there and there. Now off camera, I also try removing it a little bit. And it's also glued. That's another thing when I notice a lot of their figures. They glue certain parts of the armor where you should be able to take it off. At least the figures I've got in my experience. So again, I can't remove the armor without ripping something. All right, so just pointing that out. Aside that, so we talked about the head, the shoulder pads, the armor. Just as far as the buck, it's a typical, the classic He-Man style buck. Again, I like the purple tones. Really stands out with this figure, type of skin he has. As far as the articulation, of course, with that cut armor or the ab crunch, so he can go all the way forward and back. You can spin at the waist. Moving back up to the arms, you just have your classic He-Man style arms. As far as the articulation with those and with these shoulder protectors, which again are really rubbery, don't affect nothing. You go all the way up, down, forward, back. You have the bicep swivel. You have a bicep band that's sculpted around the arm, and it's painted black. Similar color to match the helmet. And then you have the like purple highlights or extra trim around both sides. That's painted something similar, what the face mask has. And then here's a look at the forearm. He also has his own unique spiked forearm gauntlets. Also all part of the arm sculpt. They don't come off. And then he has a weapon gripping hand that can spin. And I don't know if these... Oh, so these figures now have newer hinge joints that can go in and out. Not only can it spin, but yeah, in and out, to where a lot of the older classics didn't have that. And you notice too, when you... All right, so the forearm, excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm jumping around here. So you can bend at the elbow. Let's see the articulation. That's as far as you can go to the face, so still very limited, down to the body and straighten it out. And then the other thing with the elbow too is the pins are a little bit smaller now than the older classics. And later on, they eliminated pins, but I don't think they did it with the MOTU series. I think it was more with the Thundercats. This forearm also looks like a Hordak forearm. It's very skinny, I remember, side the spike bracer. Jumping over to the other side, it's the same arm, but just the left side. And as far as the articulation, let's test it out. Let me see, go all the way out, right? Forward, back, bicep swivel, bend at the elbow, straighten it all the way out again. Same type of bracer, sculpted on, right? And obviously another weapon gripping hand, right? You can spin in that one too. And hinge joint that goes in and out, which is, I love that. It's so cool with the classics. I wish they all had that, like the Masterverse does now. And let's see, so spinning around, let's look at the back, the cut. All right, and going down to the waist, so he just has, it looks like something similar to what Trapjaw, would use, the type of cloth, loincloth or pad. Now this too, it's like, so you can see the tones in it. It's really strange. It's really rubbery. And then this is the centerpiece, a little protective plate is painted the metallic purple again, but then you have like, I don't know, it's like gloss or I don't know what this is, just an overpaint. It's all weird, certain parts of it. He has a spike belt. It's all part of this loin piece. Again, it has the spikes to match the spikes on the wrist bracers and helmet and whatnot. Now they do have extra, okay, they have the painted details, the metallic purple on the spikes around the trim of the belt, and then the belt is black. And all right, so already said he can spin at the waist, and then going down to the legs, so, classic style legs. Now these two, Super 7, also really, I know they want to improve the articulation. They have similar hinge joints that the other, Mattel classics had, but they really cut the loin shorts or pad back in a lot of figures, and they should come down more. And this piece too is cut down from a lot of classics. So you really see that joint. It's just, when you're looking at it forward, it doesn't look bad, but the side, I don't like that. It really stands out. But anyway, I guess it gives you better articulation for the time. So we can go all the way out with a split as far as our articulation. Just look at the bottom. And then kick forward, go back. You can, oh God, okay, there we go. Bend at the knee. Let's test out the other leg. Okay, bend at the knee. Now, same thing, the pins are really small, a lot better than the older classics. All right, kick forward, right, so that go back. And then, now this figure too, with these, where the thigh pieces are supposed to go up into the hip, very similar to Extendar. These are very soft, but at certain angles, so he gets caught on these shorts, like this one does, so you got to push him in, to tuck it back under that to get the leg to go forward to certain positions, otherwise it catches. So another, same problem as Extendar. I already talked about the knees and the legs too. They're as far as the casting or the paint, it's like not black. It's like a dark gray color. It looks like. And then dropping down to the very bottom of the feet. Now, what's cool with these is they don't have any pins in the ankles, so I like that. And as far as the articulation with the foot, you can go up and down. Let's see, okay. Now you can spin with these. You can rock side to side and spin, where a lot of older classics couldn't do that. They can only rock side to side. The other foot's all the same, right? We can spin now as far as the articulation, rock. And check that out. On the bottom of the feet, he also has like spike, like cleats. That's pretty cool. Moving forward, taking a look at LODAR's weapons and accessories. Once again, he comes with that spiked mace that's seen on the front of the mini cover that he was about to smash He-Man in the face with. Really good details. Yeah, it's a really stiff plastic, so I like that. It's not gummy, and you can see just the spikes all around the top of the mace or have that metallic purple paint to match, the spikes on his various parts of his armor, and then the whole overall mace is black. And then here's a look at that chain piece. Again, it was on the front of that cover. That's awesome. So it's like you have the plate piece so you can sit into the ground. Giant pair of chains. It almost looks like it's real steel, excuse me, but it's not. It's just painted or cast in a metallic silver tone color. And then you have a pair of these shackles that you could put on your He-Man Classics figure. Now these, they can open up a little bit to get the hands in, because a lot of the older classics, you really can't take the hands off without a lot of heat. You got to be careful, or the Masterverse can pop right off. But aside that, it's cool that you can somewhat open them. But again, you have to be careful. You have these are hard plastic, not rubber. You might snap these. To have a little fun, the last thing I want to do with LODAR is set them up, of course, with a spike mace in hand, and bring a Classics He-Man in with the vintage inspired head, going back to something similar to the comic. Of course, putting the shackles on both hands, and LODAR getting ready to hit him in the face. Try to work through my childhood trauma to seeing the front of that cover. Now, the thing with these shackles is they're a little different to set up. Both chains go into one steel, that plate piece, to where in the comic, there were two individual pieces. I think Super 7 was supposed to do that originally. I think I remember reading, and they changed it, which is fine. And of course, the other thing is, like the Classics He-Man head doesn't have hair blowing or breeze, so we can't put hair in LODAR's hand, going back to the comic, which is fine. There's custom heads out there, and if you wanted to buy one with long hair, you could do something similar to that. Aside that, thought to have a little fun and try to position both of these Classics figures, something, going back to that comic. Moving right along, and last on the list, we have Snake Face. So Snake Face was always another freaky-looking Snakeman figure, within the Snakeman faction. I remember going to Child's World as a kid again on one of my toy hunts, MOTU toy hunts, and he was just sitting there on a rack. I had no idea he was coming around. I didn't see him on any of the previous card backs. None of my friends had him. He was just sitting there. That's always an awesome surprise, going back in the day. Yeah, really cool looking. I like the idea of the snakes that come out of the face, very similar to what the Classics did, and he was able to turn his enemies or opponents to stone, going back to the mythological Medusa. A really cool attack effect, I guess you would call it. Now, the vintage one had an action feature, I believe, or a switch in the back. When you pushed it up, it would make the snakes come out of the face and mouth and go, retract in and out. And then had additional snake pieces on the main body that would also flip down. I don't think the Classics has that. It looks like they have an alternative head. So they have a head that doesn't have the snake faces coming out. And of course, a head that does, as you see in the package. And I believe they also have two additional snakes as well that plugs into the armor. Very similar to what the Origins did. And here's a quick look at the bio for Snake Face. You want to pause and read that. Here's a quick look around with Snake Face and all his accessories cut out of the package. Taking a closer look at this head sculpt for the classic Snake Face. Look at that. That's really wild. So obviously it's the alternative head in package in attack mode, right, with all snakes coming out. Of course, it doesn't have the switch like the vintage did, but that is really cool with the details. And yeah, the snakes they're not rubber, but they're hard plastic. You can move them all around, bend them like so, but of course they're molded in a particular position. In this case, like bending forward, down, more bending down. All the mouths are open, which is neat. I don't know if you can spin these. I mean, you can twist them, but I don't think so. I think they're just all plugged and glued in. Yeah, look at the one coming out the mouth. You got two fangs showing, and obviously he has two big eyes that the alternative head has, that he comes with. I'll bring that in soon, in place of snakes. So obviously when these two snakes are out, you don't see the eyes. Look at the scale. So you have detailed, just the scales all over the face, on the neck. Let's see, what else? The helmet. When you take a look at the helmet, you have rows of snakes on the helmet on both sides, just in different colors. So you have the light green. The helmet has its own unique shading style of green. You have a snake symbol up top that's sculpted in. That's a metallic green. You have more of those snakes sculpted on the other side. And then out of the back of the helmet too, you have the dual snakes that come out as a pair around the each side of the neck. That's awesome. So as far as the articulation with this head and all those snakes, you can look all the way to the left. All right, look all the way to the right somewhat. You can look all the way down and up. So it's good design how they especially the ones in the back. It doesn't really hinder anything with the articulation with the head, but man, that's incredible looking. And I also like the other colors of green that they have mixed into the gray. So I already talked about the colors on top of the helmet, but yeah, with the scales in combination with the grayish skin tones, and then you have this light, like a overspray. It's like a lightish green color. Okay, you can see the joint there. It's like something to match the snakes up here. Just trying to look at this in my light. Yeah, like a sea green color that's blended into the green, or dry brush maybe, but that's awesome. I really like it. Moving down, so taking a look at the armor. So yeah, he has his own unique rubber, yeah, it's all rubber style full body armor on, but it does have the cut in the back for the torso, the ab crunch, which I don't like when they do that with the classics. I mean, you don't really see it most of the time, but yeah, it bothers me. Certain figures. He has the Snakeman symbol, right? The snake faction, snake, obviously in the chest, that's sculpted outwards and painted metallic green to match, the color on top, like the snake on top of the helmet. You have two straps that come over the shoulders, and I see. So it comes apart here. There's the two plugs. Now, in the very center, he does have the pieces that sort of pays homage going back to the vintage. So normally, like I said, and the Origins does the same thing, I'm sorry. So the Origins also has the action feature, which I'll bring in and compare in a little while. These normally would snap down, you have snakes sitting on top of these. But what the classics did, so in a way they can still kind of go down. Here's the plugs on the bottom if you see that. But once you pull the piece off, that's it. Those little snakes, the other ones are going to plug in there. So you kind of have a little bit of an action feature, but you don't. Both sides are the same, right? But all right, let's put them in now. So I'll take this piece off, snap that one off, and then the other side, same thing. And then going back to these little snakes, so they have plugs that will push inside the vest. And I don't know how easy they're going to go in. Okay, that was pretty easy. And what's cool with those is it looks like they can spin any position you want them to. But I'll just keep them like this, very similar to the head. And then you have the other one. It's going to do the same thing. And they're both identical. So let me snap that one in. How's that go in? Okay, pretty easy. And there you go. Just look at the so-called action feature with the little snakes coming out of the body harness, or excuse me, the armor. Yeah, it would have been neat if there was a way to snap these on too. Again, going back to the vintage, but it wouldn't make sense because the vintage one, or the Origins, the snakes actually laid across on these, where, yeah, these don't. They're kind of curved. Anyway, so it's interesting the way the classics went about it. Moving back up to the arms. So I already talked about the scaling, the colors, the extra wash, the green, right? Yeah, but just all the scales, and you also have fins up in the top of the shoulders as part of this bicep. So that's different from most of the figures. Because at first I thought they were like a whiplash or a clawful type arm, because they use something similar, but they didn't have the fins. And then going down, same thing with the bicep. So you have a bicep with its own type of scaling that sort of goes down close to the elbow and it stops. But then you also have additional pair of fins on both the right and left side. Then you have like a regular forearm, but then you have his bracer, so to speak, is a snake that's wrapped around the arm. And oh, check that out. And then the head's all the way back here, so it wraps all the way around like so. And the tail goes up to the wrist. And again, both sides are exactly the same. I'm just still looking this figure over. Sorry. So as far as the articulation with the arms, and go all the way out, up, down, forward, back. We have the bicep swivel. And let me see how far I can go to the center of the body. That's about it. It's hindered by the big muscles, but this rubber armor too really sticks out over the lats. I mean, you can squeeze it in. It's just very wide, so it hinders a lot of the articulation on top of the muscles. Of course, you can bend the elbow in, right, straighten it all the way out as it was. And then he just has two weapon gripping hands, right? This is just can spin. How soft are these? But those hands are really hard. Some classics the hands are soft and easy to work with. Some figures are really difficult where you got to heat them up. He's one of them. And I think the nails are painted too, a darker gray. And then jumping back over to the left side, as I already mentioned, the arms are all the same, fins, the whole deal, overspray. But let's test out the articulation. See that one? I can't even barely move. All right, so I'll have to heat it up later. But forward, back, and go out. Oh, there we go. Up, down somewhat, down to the body. Now, same thing with that. Yeah, so he gets hindered catches that. Look how wide that armor is. Push that in a little bit. That's as far as you're going. Even the snake, too, that's popping out also gets caught on it. Bend at the elbow. Straighten it out, right? Same deal. And Now he has, oh, on his side, so he has a hand that's more in an open position. It's in a gripping position, but not as closed as the right hand. And nails are painted on that hand as well. Of course, the hand can spin. And then, all right, so we talked about the armor. We have plugged in little snakes. Took a look at the back. He has the ab crunch I mentioned. And with the armor on, you can bend. That's as far as you're going forward because the bottom part hits this belt like so. But it's good enough. And you can go all the way back. That's more important. Spin at the waist. Yeah, it has his own unique style belt. As you can see, just two different shades of green to match things on a helmet, mainly on a helmet. So you have this shade of green up here, and then the other shade, the rims that goes around, like painted like a metallic green, like the snake up top. Then he has his own unique scaly loin shorts that's purple. Really stand out, right? Of all the colors on a figure, you throw some purple on them. It's interesting choice. As far as these, okay, so they're already split. Has a split in them, like a lot of classics. It's made out of rubber. And then dropping down to the legs, just classic He-Man style legs. You know, seen many times in the classics, but as far as articulation, let's test it out. So go out with a split, go forward, kick back, bend at the knee. Has a thigh, you know, that swivel, and that one's not too bad with the shorts. You can kind of see the cut, but it's not bad. Like going back to LODAR or the classics where they really chop it, you see that. It's just, yeah, again, it stands out to me. That side's even better. Oh, there you go. All right, again, kick forward, back, bend at the knee, swivel. All right, front to back. And then dropping down, he just has the same pair of boots that Skeletor, you can see Scareglow in the background. Yeah, same one Scareglow has, Skeletor. But obviously cast in a different color, like a darker green tone. And then they even has the buckles have some like metallic green highlights on them. And you can spin at the boot. All right, spin that one. And then dropping down, you have the three-toe creature foot. And that can go somewhat up and down, rock side to side. The nails are painted. And then the other foot is, well, you can't really move this. Well, anyway, up and down, rock side to side. I got to be careful with that. And of course, these show the pins. That's about it. Okay, and here's a look at that alternative head, or the head that doesn't have the snakes coming out, or there's action feature effect going on. So you look at the eyes. Really stands out. Of course, he has the open mouth with the fangs. Right, face is very similar. Same thing with the helmet. The back. And then let me bring Snake Face back in. Just a quick comparison between the two different heads. Here's a look with that alternative head on a snake face body, or you know, the head without the snakes. Quick look at that. As far as the articulation, it's just everything the same. Look all the way to the left, right. Look down and somewhat back. Now, the other thing I noticed too with this regular head is he does have some snake tails hanging out from the bottom of it. That's different from the back of this head, but that's about it. And of course, you know, don't have all snakes sticking out. Quick look at that. And then the next thing I want to do is remove the armor, off the body, but I think I have to take the head off again. And then here's a quick look at Snake Face without the armor on. So obviously I had to pull the head on and off just to remove the armor. But yeah, pretty interesting design as far as the scaling all over the body. You have the extra paint tones, the greenish colors going all over the chest. It's all over the place. Stomach, the ribs, the lats. Here's a look from the back. Scales all over. I'm guessing it's the same body they use for Clawful Buzz Off. I don't remember, but it probably is. So the colors, of course. Get a better look at the app crunch now. All right, spin at the waist. And there's a little closer look at the armor off the body. We're already familiar with the snakes coming out and the flappers that are removed. Just soft rubber, and of course the two pieces of tabs in the back. Moving forward, taking a look at Snake Face's weapons and accessories. So, of course, he comes with the iconic snake staff that most of the classic Snake Men came with, or something very similar to it. These are really detailed. I mean, I like that it's a wand that goes all the way through the main snake, so it's not just all one sculpt, and then you have the snake that's wraps around it. I think it's glued on, but if you want to take the snake off, I guess you could. I think it's plugged in and glued. And has some pretty cool details on the top of the head. Fangs showing, the mouth open. This one has gold eyes painted. Green has 3 different tones of green, very similar to his helmet and what's going on Snake Face's body. And then, of course, the metallic color going all the way around the bottom of it, so you get that. And then he comes with his iconic snake shield, which was always an interesting shield for Snake Face. Kind of small, but it does the job. Just see all the snakes, protruding all out from the center of this brass ball piece, and then clips onto the arm like that. And then here's a complete look at Snake Face, all armed up with his weapons and accessories. Of course, I have the snake attack head or face put back on. We have the little serpent snakes coming out of the armor or main body. Snake staff in the right hand because the way that's sculpted, it just holds it better. And the snake shield on the left, even though that hand is sculpted in more of an open position, it's not for the shield. And going back to what I said earlier with Extendar, see this one too clips on. I'm going to say it again, I don't like that with the classics because they scratch the figures easy, especially Snake Face, because you have these, this pretty cool looking coiled sculpted snake that goes around the arm, but it's painted. And that's an easy thing to chip from what I can see. But anyway, just a quick look at that setup. And man, I got to say, Mattel did an incredible job for the design of the snake figure or Snake Face figure at the time for the classics. Once again, moving forward with a couple comparisons. So, of course, we have our classic Snake Face all set up against the Extendar Snake Face. I do have him as well. Just look at those two together. I mean, look at the detail on the Extendar. It's like a lot of their figures, just over the top. Look at that snake shield. That's what a snake shield should look like, at least the size of that small little thing. Yeah, but the colors, the design, all the snakes, the way they're sculpted. Now, this Snake Face doesn't have two snakes coming out. He just has them sculpted to the armor. I don't think they move. No. But you have a snake tongue as well, but coming all the way out of the mouth, but just highly detailed. I mean, the inside of the mouth's painted, has eyes, the fangs, instead of just red snakes. You can see the way the snakes come around the sections of the... Alright, they come off the back. And then he has his own, like, snakes all over the head, but they're not... I guess something similar like the helmet. That's what it's kind of going for. But it goes the other way. More like tails. Yeah, like something like that. The overall face. But that's just... Wow, what an incredible looking design. And again, what hurt this figure is just a lack of articulation, in my opinion. But the colors and everything, man, it really stands out. Anyway, just a quick look at those two together, what the Extendar, Snake Face did against the classics. Then, for the last comparison, of course, here's the origin Snake Face against the classic Snake Face. Pretty much where the whole inspiration of the classics design came from. Or really, it was the vintage, and the classics came after that, or years after that. The origins came out later, which is also based off the vintage. They're all based off the vintage, but... Here's a quick look at the overall design if you're not familiar with the Snake Face against the classics. So you can see how they went about the shields. Yeah, it's interesting even the origin shield is a lot larger than the classics. That would have been a good size. I should have stuck with this. But, alright, it is what it is. You can see the snake staffs. The overall head design. So, of course, this is the snake attack head, the alternative one. Again, he doesn't have the action feature. But look at the front and then the back of the heads. And then with the origins, so he does have the snakes that come down that action feature of the chest. So, just two flat snakes that are somewhat sculpted and painted on these pieces. Again, pays homage back to what the vintage did, but kind of cheesy. I think I like this better, where you plug in the snakes, just more detail to it. And then the origin Snake Face head, here's the alternative one. So again, he doesn't have the action feature. And this is the alternative head going back to the classics head. Let me bring that in for a closer look. And that's a difference between the two and what they look like together, how they went about them, size and the backs. So that about does it for part 15 of opening up my MOTU Classics figures for talk and reviews. And if you're still here, I appreciate that you take the time to watch. But I have to say, 3 more really fun Classics figures to take out a card, review, go over them, talk about them. Yeah, just really fun. Out of all 3 of these, my favorite figure is definitely Snake Face. I mean, just look at him. The armor, the head, the face with all the snakes coming out, the weapons, the colors. He just stands out to me the most. And LODAR's really cool with his, purple skin tones and hockey, the mask, the head, the mask with the spikes coming out. This big chain piece. Really interesting character aside the typical Super 7 QC issues with the glue and the runs and things like that, but I can overlook that. Extendar too. When you put them all together with his extensions, he really stands out just with his overall height. But they're exhausting putting together. That's why he's short now. I like the color design, the choice they went with. It would have been neat if they marbleized them, but I didn't expect that for the classics because using soft armor and stuff like that. So it works. You got to be careful of the gold colors because it chips easy. And I like this newer accessory, the lance, right, going back to being a knight. But I don't like this the outer tip piece that's just too soft and gummy. Should have left it as like a harder material like the rest of this. But aside that, it is what it is. Having a good time with these. And as always, I appreciate everybody watching. Until next time, take care.